this particular footage. Roll tape, please.
Well, you're right, Richard, but the issue, this particular issue, has to do with minor children.
Well, I've tried to stay out of the conversation to let these bills get talked about, but this is just biting to get discussed here on that 310 issue, the subject matter. I wonder why the philosophy then cannot be expanded with this type of philosophy. Why not then consider the minor child boy, male, also for custody? I mean, it seems as though you've gone around and you've checked with her grandparents, you checked with the grandparents on the other side, and no one has asked. Suppose this kid's working at some Burger King someplace, flipping hamburgers, making $5 an hour, then why not have the same logic and say, young man, do you want to care for this child? Would you like custody of the child?
That bill does not address that, and the bill doesn't preclude that. The fact of the matter is, if paternity is established, that young man, at least legally, has all the rights that the young woman has to ask for and to obtain custody.
Legally, yes, but you and I both know the deck is stacked, and we've even talked around it. And I've tried. I wanted to stay out of it, but at this point, I'm saying, look, you're going all the way around, but you never asked the guy for custody.
The bill is dead in the water.
Yeah.
But the fact is, I mean, it's just in the program hasn't changed in 20 years, and the fact is, the feds won't have to deal with custody
Understood.
issues, and we just don't get there.
Okay, let's go on.
Opportunity to waiver.
Okay, 392, Senate Bill 392 has passed. The Senate,
It's been voted on?
no, the Senate Judiciary Committee will be on the third reading calendar any day now, meaning it'll be voted on on the floor of the Senate. This is the occupational licensing bill. We borrowed from our friends in Washington a list of I'm sorry, I'm getting that confused with one of the other subjects, which I'll get around to in a minute. We have regulated for the last 2 years under 1993 Senate Bill 975. We have regulated 7 industries or 7 occupations and suspended licenses in 7 occupational areas for failure to make an agreement to pay child support. This bill, 392, expands that concept to all occupations and professions which require a permit, certificate, registration, or license from the state of Oregon. In addition, it covers an area which is similar to an occupational license, but not quite. It also requires, for the same reasons, the suspension of any license issued by the OLCC. So if you own an establishment which sells alcoholic beverages, you have to have a license to run that establishment. That is not an occupational license per se. But that license also is subject to suspension under this law. So it's any occupational license issued by the state of Oregon plus licenses issued by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission.
Any license by the OLCC?
Any license issued by OLCC. So that would be a bartender's license, which is that's pretty close to an occupational license. But in addition, the owner of the establishment, Richard, would have to have a license to run that establishment, and that license would also be subject to suspension.
All right, the reason for running that is to let you know that there are plenty of pitfalls in the child support issue, some of it in the guidelines, some of it in the way it is played out. And maybe through Greg Austin here, we might learn a little bit about some of the pitfalls. First off, the guidelines are set up as a general guide and a general standard. There are some rebuttable presumptions that one can address when they're first set up, when you are first confronted with them. I have a list of some of the rebuttable presumptions, but maybe Greg Austin might know of some ideas that he would like to tell a guy if he's going through a hearing What are some of the things that he wants to consider? What are some of the do's and don'ts if he's going through a child support hearing? Let's make an assumption that he's either already required to pay or he's in the system about to get nailed. What are some of the do's and don'ts in that first encounter, or in that encounter, even if it's a modification?
Most people coming into the system, the child support collection system, in my experience, come in through one of two doors. They either come in through the divorce courts, or they come in from contact with SED. Affiliation, if you will. If somebody's been named the parent, the father of a child, and in those administrative hearings that they were talking about on the first tape that we watched, is really the primary function of those administrative hearings is to levy child support taxes, if you will, on parents who are getting hammered for the first time. That's where they come from. When people come in through the divorce courts, they are maybe signing up for child support for the first time, but it's an entirely different context, and their admission to to the game does not begin with a letter from the state. These guys that come in through the administrative hearings, first notice of anything that's going on is very often a letter, kind of like that Uncle Sam Wants You letter, except it says, we want your money. And the letter is, in my opinion, somewhat deceptive, because what it says is that to a lot of people is, listen, we're going to assess child support against you, and unless you contest it. And if you want to contest the assessment of child support, then you must do something about that. You have to request a hearing within 30 days.
Okay. All right. Greg has given us a little bit of insight. Now, I've got to look to my crew here. Do we have a call on the line that we need to take? Okay. We'll take the call out. And again, we're talking about child support. We're going to try to get into it as deeply as we possibly can here. So if the call will come through, we'll deal with the call and handle the call. Hello there, caller.
Hello.
You have a question for Greg Austin or for Victor Fleming?
Well, not really. I just wanted to make a stand on this issue, and that is, I just don't believe in it.
You don't believe in the child support?
Period.
Okay. There's a lot of guys out there that's like that.
Yeah, well.
And you're one of them.
Yeah, I'm one of them at about $48,000 worth. Yeah, I'm one of them.
Do you owe child support now?
$48,000.
Are you refusing to pay?
Yes, I am.
Have you made your, well, I guess the fact that you have an arrearage is obvious. Are you being sought out? Is there an arrest warrant out for you?
Not that I know of. And if they are, have fun trying to find me.
Is
simple as that. I've been a mole for about 15 years on this situation. And it's got down to the point to where I'm going to go out and get me a shirt, and I'm going to put on there, I'm proud to be a deadbeat dad.
Okay. Anything else you want to say there?
The point is I don't feel that the government should be dealing in other people in a common person's life. I mean, I send my kids money, and I have my kids 6 months out of the year. And whenever this woman decides she don't want to work anymore, she goes off and sets on welfare. And I think welfare should just totally be abolished.
Okay. Have you made your political thoughts known to the governor? Is it an Oregon issue?
No, it's a Colorado issue.
Have you written to the legislators in Colorado and let them know?
Well, let me in-depth this a little bit more, the reason why it stands as it is. I was in Colorado when this happened, right? And what has caused this situation to go as it is those people, I had a $5 an hour job down there. These people come in, they wanted 65% of my wages, and that was after the state took their taxes, the federal taxes, so on and so forth. So that gives me about what, $58 every 2 weeks to live on. Okay, well, this is November. Those people tried to kill me down there. Have you ever tried to sleep in a Pinot in November in Colorado?
Your point is very well taken. Let me thank you very much for the call, and maybe we can deal with your
Well,
thoughts.
I appreciate this too, because I've been wanting to make this known for ever since I've seen your program a long time ago, and this is the first time I've been able to call you.
Well,
but I just want to say, down with welfare. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you for your political point of view. There are a lot of guys out there. Do you get very many of those in your office who will say exactly what he has said, that he doesn't think that they should pay, and he refuses to pay, and he will run up a $40,000 or $50,000 debt?
I get a lot of people who have large amounts of child support past due, but I get very few people who take the position that they do not have an obligation of some sort.
Okay.
And I think some of them have just kind of surrendered. They're beaten down, and they're not gonna argue with the state's proposition that they have to pay. But I think the vast majority of the people that I encounter express to me that they feel obliged to contribute to the cost of raising their children.
Let's ask Victor Fleming. Vic, what's your experience? Now, you
My
deal with...
experience is pretty much similar to that. The only difference, well, it's not even a difference. I'm sure Greg gets this too. The only thing I would add to that is I have people, most of my clients, the dads or the obligor, whoever it is, to acknowledge that they have an obligation to pay for the child's welfare or the children's welfare. The only thing I might add to that is there's a lot of feeling that it's unfair, the level that it's set at. And that's just, depending on where the guidelines fall for that particular person, they think this is just burdensome. In some cases, it's out of ignorance because they come in and they find out that it can be modified for whatever reason down to what is more appropriate for their level.
Okay.
Oftentimes what happens is they get caught up in the system, somebody gets a divorce or a paternity action, and the state or somebody sets the child support level at some high figure, and they don't feel that they can fight that. They just accept it somehow and try and scrabble by.
That leads right into what I need to ask you too, just as I asked Greg when we opened up on this discussion. What are some of the things that a guy in Washington with a Washington order should consider when they go into a hearing, whether it's a modification type hearing or a review process hearing, or whether it's for the first time? What does he need to know when he goes in there? It's been my experience, for instance, that the agency, whether it's now in Oregon, we have, as you guys know, you could go in two different doors. You could go in the district attorney's door for non-welfare cases, or you could go into the Attorney General's Office Support Enforcement Division for welfare type cases. I think in Washington you don't have it split that way. You go in one place, whether it's welfare or non-welfare. Is that correct?
Pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, the child support enforcement may come after you for a paternity action, but much of it goes to the courts. That's true.
What does a guy need to know when they go in? Now, my experience has been that the agency will always highball the guy. That is, and by highballing, I mean suppose you make $20,000 a year or $25,000. The agency will send you a notice that they think you make $30,000 or $35,000 a year, and then make you, the guy, prove that you make less. And so that way you're ready to bring out your bank account slips and your payroll slips and so on. And if you don't, the error is on the high side. Is that your experience?
That's true, and I guess I might put this. I have a heavy tax practice as well, and I might kind of correlate this to income tax. When the IRS, for instance, kind of does a return for you, basically. They do a return without any exemptions, any deductions. They just say, this is your income and tax you want. It's the same way with the child support enforcement people in Washington. They'll come in and say, okay, we think that you make this much money, and bang, here's your highball, as you put it. And it's your burden. They get served with a 20-day notice to come in and prove that's different. A lot of times the dads get this thing, there's a huge sheaf of papers, and I've had cases where they come in, they're overwhelmed by that, they don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. 20 days pass, and lo and behold, they're stuck.